You don't need a kid as a wife. Why were there 25 Republicans voting against it? Why were there 25 Republicans who were like, yeah, child marriage is good, actually? Guys, you know what my favorite part about living in America is? Child marriage. Oh, that didn't come out the way it was supposed to. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about that, because that's apparently a thing that we have to talk about. Well, why is this relevant? But it is. But first, let's get into the fan art section. First one we have here is from Aston. Found an outline brush and made a Valentine's Day Slime Girl Suris outfit. Aww, that's adorable. I'm hoping to have a decent Valentine's Day. And then Aston also made another one. A wild duo appears. Duolingo can be a streaming category, and I love language learning, so a possible thing to do during a subathon. P.S. Which languages would you be interested in learning? So Aston, I am not super interested in learning other languages unless I'm presented with a reason that I need to. Typically, I say this because I have tried in the past and I know how hard it is for me to actually do so. I have to be basically fixated on something to learn it. But who knows? There are people who've tried to force me to learn Polish, so we'll see. But Galaxy and Stardust, thank you for the follow. As always, everybody, thank you for the fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. And with that all said, let's go ahead and get into the topic at hand. Wyoming? Why are you like this? Axolotls with cream. Thank you for redeeming your points for an owl. The Wyoming Republican Party is seeking to kill a bill. It's on its way through the state legislature that proposes a raise in the state's, it tries to raise the state's legal marriage age up to 16. Up to 16. Up to. Not down to, up to. Why is it already so low? Stoff, thank you for redeeming your points for an fucking degen. And yes, I will hydrate. I will commit wet. I will commit wet. Yeah, what is it about, like, the Republican Party likes to bitch about trans people saying, let kids be kids, but no, you want them fucking married and pregnant, as Matt Walsh has tried to argue. Why? Why do you need this? You don't need a kid as a wife. I'm sorry, nobody does. The bill, which already passed the Republican-controlled Wyoming House of Representatives on a 36 to 25. Why were there 25 Republicans voting against it? Why were there 25 Republicans who were like, yeah, child marriage is good, actually? They proposed banning state residents from marrying anyone under the age of 16 while requiring anybody under the age of 18 to get married, to have written consent from their parents under the eye of a competent witness. The debate has been a long-standing one in Wyoming. Why has it been a long-standing debate in Wyoming? Why do you want children getting married? Currently, Wyoming is just one of 8 states in the country, including California, Michigan, Mississippi, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Washington, and West Virginia, that do not have a minimum age requirement for marriage. Oh. You could get a 10-year-old married. That's fucking gross. Why? I have to ask you, what even is the appeal? I'm gonna go ahead and say, just like, as let's pretend there's a hypothetical Republican across the seat from me right now. A hypothetical Republican, okay? My guy. Can you do me a favor? Can you explain to me the appeal of child marriage? Well, you see, actually, it's a religious liberty thing. No. I didn't ask you why you're advocating for it. I asked you what the goddamn appeal was. Oh, well, you see, it's not really for me to, well, you're advocating for it. Why do you care? What kids do you think need to be getting married? You know, it's easier to mold your young wife and... Oh, okay, so now you're the groomer. Got it. Good to know. Glad we're on the same page, you Fucking disgusting assholes. It is ranked in the top 10 states in the country for child marriages, according to a 2021 study by the advocacy group Unchained at Last. Efforts to raise the age of marriage in the state have constantly stalled. Now retired Laramie Democratic Representative Charles Pelkey sponsored legislation to raise the age of marriage to 18, only to fail with every effort. It's also a common practice across the country, even now, while the number of child marriages nationally has been in steady free fall over the last few decades, thank God, just 7 states to date have voted to ban it entirely, even as countries like the Philippines passed national laws banning the practice. Other states like Tennessee have actually sought to go in the opposite direction, with Republicans there seeking last year to eliminate any limits on marriage entirely until public outrage forced them to reverse course. It's really great the legislators want to protect 3% of all those who are impacted by child marriage, said Freddie Reese, founder of Unchained at Last. But to us, if you're failing to protect 97% of the people you're claiming to protect, you don't really have the right to brag about that. To me, it's just the bill is not even worth the paper that it's printed on at any point. I actually think, though, I want to disagree there. So the fact that you're looking at these things in terms of just percentages, just raw percentages, I understand from a utilitarian perspective. It's a good way to look at things. At the same time, though, what does that number look like? Because if that number is higher than 1, then that's still something. 16 is better than no floor. And on top of that, showing the amount of Republicans who are not willing to negotiate or even accept the 16 floor in general, it's a pretty good indicator of which Republicans you need to fire. Just saying. Just saying. To make the point, the party shared materials on a Thursday evening email to constituents containing talking points from Wyoming Family Watch, a religious lobbying group organized by a conservative pastor in the state. Among other points, the letter argued that preventing children under 16 years old from marrying denies the fundamental purpose of marriage, robbing teen parents from the ability to remain together under one roof for any children they might bear together, even though nothing in state law would prevent the children from co-parenting. You know, Zenitha B&B says, "Hello, entertainer person, sir. How has thy day been? It was better when I wasn't reading about child marriage still being legal and Nazis trying to have homeschooling in the United States. Since young men and women may be physically capable of begetting and bearing children prior to 16, marriage must remain open to them for the sake of those children," the post read. "The sad fact is that physical maturity often does not match emotional and intellectual maturity, and that's an indictment of our modern education system. That is a problem that should be addressed, but we should not use it as an excuse to instantate bad law." Okay, so the problem there is that you're not seeing the problem with marriage. I can understand the perspective of like, well, if you think that sex is bad before marriage, and that people who have had sex and have had kids should be able to continue to have sex together, and therefore they should be able to live under the same house, and you think that all of that should only be allowed if people are married, then I can understand the perspective that you come from there. I just very much disagree. Can I also say that the language that somebody uses about, you know, she's not physically mature, but she's very mentally mature, that is the language of actual PDF files. Like that is exactly the language that somebody would use to justify an adult who is established sleeping with an actual child. In the case of a girl who gets raped and gets pregnant, the answer for them is, instead of putting the rapist in... Oh, wait, hold on. Let's look at this one. According to Unchained at Last, the U.S., approximately 60,000 marriages since 2000 have occurred at spousal age differences that could have been considered a sex crime, allowing marriage license to become a sort of get-out-of-jail-free card for any would-be rapist, particularly if they impregnated the victim. In the case of a girl who gets raped and gets pregnant, the answer for them is, instead of putting the rapist in prison or prosecuting them, we're going to marry him off to the girl he raped, said Rice. I mean, it's unspeakable, it's unfathomable, it's absolutely horrific. Next says, we can't see what you're seeing. Here you go. Now you can see what I'm seeing. Isn't it great? Isn't it wonderful? The potential is there. In Wyoming, approximately 20 child marriages take place in the state each year. State records show with occasionally disparate age differences. During a hearing on the bill earlier this year, the deputy state registrar of vital statistics told lawmakers that they had seen one case in which a 32-year-old man married a 16-year-old girl in Wyoming. The Casper... Hold on. Kid, stop. That is the thing that the Casper Star Tribune reported. while there have reportedly been several instances of 14-year-olds being married in the state. Meanwhile, other research from groups like UNICEF has argued any loopholes are largely insufficient to address coerced marriage, depriving the child of any agency in the decision. Parental approval can often be synonymous with parental coercion, especially in the case of an unexpected pregnancy, financial instability, or other situations that might influence a parent's decision. A 2021 UNICEF policy brief reads, "In all scenarios, child marriage limits the rights of a child and deprives them of the opportunity to control their future." Yeah, I don't agree with the parental consent for marriage. I think it should literally just be, don't let the kids get married. Despite state testimony, critics argued there was no evidence presented to demonstrate Wyoming was facing any statistical uptick of coerced marriages, making the passage of any bill a moot point with no clear rationale to support it. I feel like you don't need a statistical uptick in coerced marriages. You just need to accept that they're a thing that exists, and therefore you don't need them. In the House committee, there was no testimony weighing the trade-off of parental rights over against any significant issue with child marriage in Wyoming. To the contrary, the sponsor of the bill openly admitted that it's not what we would call a problem in this state. On average, 20 marriages per year under 18 are in Wyoming. There's no testimony about the factual number under 16, nor was there any testimony about why under 16 years there should be no judicial exceptions, the group added. What we're arguing about in most states is the idea of entering a minor into a marriage before they're old enough to bring legal action in their own name or get into a domestic violence shelter. It's a horrific legal trap that we're creating for minors. That's usually what we're arguing, and it's just really despicable that in Wyoming, this has become an argument of whether or not we want to continue marrying off girls to their rapists. Yeah, no, this fucking gross. Why? I don't understand. What is the appeal to thinking about child marriage in this way? What is the appeal to advocating for it? What do you gain from advocating for it except for more victims? All you're doing is hurting kids, and yet the argument here is that it's religious freedom that's being protected. I'm sorry, religion's not a person, kids are people. I don't give two flying fucks about protecting the idiosyncrasies of an ideology when there are actual people being hurt. That's way more important to me, personally. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. I am grossed out. Hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert in the video tagline here.